Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Knoll, and welcome back once again to another edition of the movie Battleground. We are back for another Saturday, another match in our Summer Invitational series, and we have a matchup between two competitors who are, at this point, one match away from a tournament final, what will technically be a number one contenders match for them. And both of these guys are coming from very different, interesting positions coming in here. We have Amaru Moses, who is, he's kind of, for lack of a better comparison, the Henry Sanchez of this tournament, right? Last year in our tournament, Henry Sanchez got a second opportunity to play, and he made the most of it. He's still a defending champion. Amaru was brought into this tournament kind of by popular vote. Seemingly anyone who might have had to step out wanted him to be the replacement, so I put him in just for fun. And he's made it all the way to this point. He is making the most of that opportunity given to him, although it has not been easy for him, as he has now 2 more blind rounds on his record, something that he hates on the inside and the outside. Meanwhile, he's going up against Alec Miller, who returned from a long period of time off, but has made the most of his run as well, with 2 knockout wins back-to-back against Ryan Permison and Jake Reese. So certainly there is a new level of hopefully some confidence for him heading into this with some great wins. But these guys, again, as I said, they are playing for the opportunity to make it to this tournament finals. This match will not be easy, so let's just get it over with, right? Introducing first, coming in with a record of 5 wins, 1 defeat, he is the one man in this league that I'm sure everyone is sure to know, even if you've never seen a match, because he's done things bigger and better than us. He is Amaru Moses. Amaru, welcome back, man. How are you doing?
Doing all right. Bigger, of course. Better, we'll see.
I can't pay anybody, so I'm going to go better, yes.
Okay, sure. In that aspect, yeah, I'm doing well. I really like debating. I've been able to do it a bunch. Hopefully, I'll continue to do it a bunch. I'm really happy to be facing Alec. It's going to be a fun match. Let's see if we go blind round. Let's see.
Yeah, absolutely, man. It seems to just be a thing that happens with you. I mean, Noah played the match of his life to kind of step up against you, and you were able to win that, but it took it to the blind round. And then Joe gave you the exact game that a former champ would bring. Went to the blind round, and you were still able to take that. Is there any part of you that it so here's an interesting proposition. At one point, I had a conversation with Madi, who he has rarely played the blind round, but he has that same sort of mental opposition towards it. And he once said that losing is better than playing it. Do you agree with that statement or not?
No.
Okay. Well,
not at all.
No. That's a cheap shot at Madi. I love that guy, but I like the attitude. So I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back and bring in your opponent with a record of 3 wins, 1 defeat, and 2 knockouts. He is Sinister Alec Miller. Alec, welcome back, sir. Off the back again. You've had a good tournament so far. You know, your last match before this was back in 2021, I believe, when you played Jeremy Adams. And that was obviously a knockout loss for yourself. Since then, you've come back and knocked out 2 people back-to-back. I have a hard time seeing this one going that way just based off who we have playing. But how does that make you feel coming into this?
I'm not resting on it. I'm not coming in here expecting a knockout. I will admit it, the last knockout, I don't really even want to count, if you know what I mean. If you didn't watch, if you watched the match,
you did win every point that was presented to you.
Yes, but it was
I get what you mean.
It wasn't the way that I wanted to win it, but you know, a win is a win is a win. But so I'm not coming in here expecting to go another knockout. I'm expecting to go all 4 questions, possibly 5. So yeah, I'm nervous, but I'm pumped.
All right, man. Well, I won't waste any more time. I'll bring Amaru back in. We will go ahead and get into this. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. That's a first to 3 points win. Each round of debate is going to be worth 1 point tonight. If a competitor does happen to get 3 points in a row, that is a victory by knockout. If it ends in a 2-2 tie after 4 rounds, we visit Amaru's new best friend, the blind round, to decide our victor. But before we worry about that, in terms of the main 4 rounds, the competitors have been given their questions. They've had as much time as I could give them to put their arguments together. We will have 60 seconds each to open, followed by 2 minutes to expand and kind of explain out their arguments. There will be a 4-minute open discussion where they will trade blows back and forth and try and work in as many points as possible to support their arguments, followed by 60 seconds to close, wrap up, add on anything they need. to seal the deal. Following that, I have 3 judges backstage in Richie, Zachary, and Malcolm. They will join us on screen following the debates, where they will make a decision based on what was said as to who won the round. With that said, do you guys have any questions for me, or are we ready to go?
Nope. Let's get it.
Good luck, sir.
All right.
Good luck.
Absolutely. Let's go ahead and get into it. And we're going to start off on a bit of a sad note, because at the start of the month, we passed the anniversary of a passing.
Lay down.
I would say.
Lay down. I'm so sorry. My dog.
No, you're good. You're good. Was it his kid or his dog? Make your guess at home. No, that's horrible. It's the kid, obviously. At the start of the month, we passed the anniversary of the passing of probably one of, I would say, in the 90s going into the 2000s, one of the biggest comedians out there, who also found his way into a successful film career. He was a part of some of the biggest comedies. He even found a way to transition into other films. And somehow he wound up being tortured in a Michael Bay film. Not because he was tortured in the Michael Bay film. I just imagine it's torture to work with Michael Bay. We are talking, of course, about the great late Bernie Mac. And I always love having the chance to kind of go outside of what we normally talk about on Battleground and expand the horizons. The question is, what's the best film featuring or starring Mr. Bernie Mac? Now, behind the scenes, based on the way of the seeding of the tournament, Alec, you did have the higher seed, so you were deemed the favorite tonight. So you chose to go first on questions 1 and 3, which means, Amaru, you will go first on 2 and 4. So I will go ahead and bring in timer for you guys. I will wish you both the best of luck on a great match. And Alec, it will start ticking when you begin speaking.
So I went with a film that is actually, now that I'm looking back on it, is really one of those movies that was formative for me in terms of liking and loving movies as much as I do, and that's Friday. I think Friday is one of those timeless movies that has stood the test of time. Is still so quotable. Still gets as many laughs as it did back when I was younger. Probably way younger than I should have been watching this movie the first time. But in my opinion, he has a memorable part. It's a small part, but it's a memorable part in that film, and that's why I went with Friday.
All right, and it appears that will be time on Alex round 1, so I'll go ahead and jump the timer forward. Amaru, you are ready when it begins.
As Aaron mentioned, Bernie Mac is known for being one of the best comedians of all times, being in a lot of films that are absolutely hilarious. But when it comes to talking about what is the best film with him, whether it's a cameo or he has a large role in it, I don't think there's a clearer answer than Ocean's 11. Ocean's 11 is everything you wanted it to be and more. It utilizes Bernie Mac to his fullest capacities. It utilizes everybody to their fullest capacities. And when you think what is the best film, you want to think about overall what is the one that does what it's supposed to do, but also does more than what you're wanting, does more than what you're expecting, and excelling at it, keeping you entertained, making you love every single character in the film, not wasting a second. That is all Ocean's 11, and that is easily the best film with Bernie Mac in it.
All right, and as that is time on his opening, 2 great movies, obviously, and I always like when I have the chance to take a moment and just completely dismantle what you guys are saying. So I'm just going to present that in addition to these 2 great films, Bernie Mac also starred in Guess Who, a 2000-style comedy remake of Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, with Ashton Kutcher being the guy he was paired with. Yes, Charlie Sheen's replacement from 2.5 Men, the guy who played second fiddle to Topher Grace, was the guy we cast in that film. Just think about that. Anyways, let's talk about good movies. Alec, you have 2 minutes on the clock when you're ready to go.
Bernie Mac definitely has a bigger role in Ocean's 11, but and you know he does his thing in that movie. To me, there is no better kind of debut to most people who probably hadn't heard of Bernie Mac than Friday. He had a small part, but is an absolutely hilarious part of the movie. And it also introduces us to guys like Chris Tucker, John Witherspoon is great in it, and who didn't fall in love with Nia Long back when that movie first came out, because I know I did. But it also gave us a story that kind of like is timeless in terms of like what people go through in the everyday type thing. And it's one of those movies that I love personally, where it takes place over one day, takes place over one Friday, and it keeps you enthralled and completely captivated from the beginning to the end. Either you're laughing or you even get into a part where you're like, oh man, like stuff's really starting to go down, and get serious for a bit there. I'm sorry for the dog in the background. But I just think that this movie, in terms of how great it is because of the kind of like the timelessness. I was talking about earlier. Like this movie is beyond quotable. It's where we got "Bye Felicia," things that are still said to this day. You got Chris Tucker's hilarious performance as Smokey, and you get guys like Big Worm and all that. Whereas it's a amalgamous of actors in Ocean's 11. In Friday, you're able to kind of sit down and enjoy a very small, simple story and be entertained for the entirety of the time. And I'll concede the rest of my time.
All right. We'll go ahead and move back over to Amaru when time turns over. All right, when you are ready.
Alec is right. That is a great debut from Bernie Mac. But the comparison of Bernie Mac's performances in Friday and in Ocean's 11 is actually a great parallel to the two movies. Both of them are amazing, and both of them do what they're supposed to do extremely well. But while Friday is probably the funniest movie that Bernie Mac has been in, Ocean's 11 is the best. Friday may be one of Bernie Mac's funniest performance, but Ocean's 11 shows that he is more than just a comedian. He doesn't just have to be funny to do well. He can be in action. He can be in a heist movie and thrillers. He doesn't have to lean on that comedy. And Ocean's 11 does everything it's supposed to do. It's a hilarious heist movie. It's a thrilling heist movie. The plot keeps you entertained from front to back because of the twists and turns. It is a great ensemble film where every single actor, whether they're in it for 5 minutes or 50 minutes, kills their role, and you remember every single one of them. They're doing it just right. Don Cheadle, George Clooney, Brad Pitt, Andy Garcia is an amazing antagonist, but not only is it a great heist film with a great ensemble, but it's also Ocean's 11 is also extremely funny. It is also a great thriller. It has some great romance and romantic comedy vibes in it with the cat and mouse and back and forth with George Clooney and Julia Roberts. It is more than just what it's supposed to be. It is amazing at every single aspect of the film from front to back. It is also extremely quotable and including some of the most hilarious parts from Bernie Mac when he calls Matt Damon a cracker. I can't wait for that part the entire time. But again, it gives him more to do because who's the first person that George Clooney goes to when he gets out? He goes to Bernie Mac's character, setting up, hey, this Bernie Mac is not just a comedian. This movie is not just a heist movie. It is everything you want it to be. Again, while Friday is his funniest film, Ocean's 11 is his best.
And time. All right, we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open discussion. As always, as a reminder to the competitors, obviously be sure to get your points in, but be as respectful as possible to each other as well. That said, the timer will start when the first person speaks.
You're right. These are both two great movies. We're gonna be picking apart hairs here, pulling apart hairs, but in terms of what has lasted, the amount of time it has, Friday is just one of those movies that it's never boring. It's something that that when you talk about with somebody else, you could sit there talking for hours about this movie because of how influential this movie was. Ocean's 11 is a good heist movie, But in terms of like what people remember, like I don't hear a lot of people talking about Ocean's 11. It is great, don't get me wrong, but it just hasn't lasted the amount of time. It hasn't stood the test of time like Friday has. Yeah, so many great moments, and this is just a movie that people have always remembered, and people continue to talk about. In terms of Bernie Mac's performance, I agree. Obviously, he has a much bigger performance. He has a much bigger part to play in Ocean's 11, but in the small part that he is in, you're sitting there laughing from the minute that he's there to the minute he leaves off of camera, and then when he comes back on when he's running away from the guy's house, he leaves a lasting impression. And you were able to introduce us to so many great moments, like the Debo fight. You have the Smokey getting high off of angel dust part. Like there's so many great scenes in this movie that I just think it stands out in front of Ocean's 11.
Again, you're talking about it stands out in test of time because of how funny it is. But as a movie overall, both of these films stand the test of time. You want to talk about favorite comedies? Friday's always up there. Every time you talk about a heist movie, there's no way you don't talk about Ocean's 11. The actual writing in the film is amazing. Every single performance is amazing. And there's not a wasted moment from front to back, while in Friday, there are actually moments you don't need in the film and the film is still going to be funny. The whole side plot with Smokey getting high off that angel dust, you don't need in the movie. It's still funny. The whole side plot with Chris trying to whoop him, the little bad kid, you don't need that in the movie. The only thing it's funny. And on top of that, it's also kind of stereotypical and it's really, really very predictable. But that doesn't make it any less funny. It just doesn't make it a better film than what it is. It's just funny. You even forget that the serious part is coming, and I'm gonna let you explain what that serious part is if you can, because there are a lot of things you don't remember if you're not a huge fan. Do you know who Angela Means plays? Do you know who Paula Jai Parker plays? You might know the characters, and then you're gonna be like, ooh, in Ocean's 11, you know who everybody is: Don Cheadle, Bernie Mac, Brad Pitt, Matt Damon, Andy Garcia, Julia Roberts. And they're not just names for name's sake. They play essential roles in the movie, and every single aspect adds to the movie. Every single aspect makes it funny, makes it thrilling. The score is absolutely amazing. You hear like 2 seconds of that score and you know exactly what it is. Every aspect of the movie is hands down, head and shoulders above a good amount of the heist movies out, and it is entertaining from front to back, while Friday is hilarious. But I know a lot of people who haven't seen it because they're like, maybe that's not for me. I know a lot of people who've seen Ocean's 11, no matter who you are.
It's funny because I the opposite is for me. I know a lot of people that have seen Friday, and I don't think I've ever had an actual conversation with anyone about Ocean's 11. It is a great heist movie, but heist movies, I think in the grand scheme of things, do become forgettable because they're kind of been done to death, and it's been a while since great ones happened. So it doesn't happen often where you get one like Ocean's 11, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's a better movie than Friday. I think Friday does exactly what it wants to do. You do get the moment in terms of things that maybe other people don't remember. There's so many people that remember the you win some, you lose some, but you live to fight another day. A great quote from John Witherspoon. This movie will be forever remembered, and I think it's overall a better movie than Ocean's 11, which hits every single beat that you need with a heist movie, and that's about it.
And time. All right, we got 1 minute left on the clock for each competitor. Alec, you're back up when you're ready.
Ocean's 11 suffers because of the fact that we haven't had a lot of great heist movies maybe in my lifetime. They're the memorable ones that everyone remembers, and then Ocean's 11's included in that. In terms of comedies and 90s movies, the pinnacle of 90s movies, Friday is always up there. It's going to always be remembered as one of the most hilarious movies. And Bernie Mac played a big part in that. Without this movie, we wouldn't get Ice Cube, both with his acting career, even though you might not like it, but I think he's done a decent job with it. You get guys like Chris Tucker, John Witherspoon, Bernie Mac. Everything that you want from this movie, you get, and it hits every single time, no matter how many times you watch it. Ocean's 11, once you've seen it, you don't necessarily need to see it again unless you're a big Matt Damon fan, right? So that's why I have Friday as the best Bernie Mac featured movie.
And time. All right, I'm going to be back over to you. Final minute of the round, sir.
What we're not arguing here is we're not arguing the most seen. We're not arguing the most quotable. We're not arguing the most funny. We're arguing what is best. And as a movie, Ocean's 11 is miles better than Friday. Friday is predictable. Friday uses stereotypes. It has 90 minutes of hilarious comedy and maybe 2 minutes of actual drama to come in, whereas Ocean's 11 has all the heist elements. You talk about there's no great heist films. Inside Man, The Town, The Italian Job, Heat, Inception, all amazing films. And Ocean's 11 is always named amongst those heist films because it's not only just a heist film, where a lot of those just do the heist and stay dramatic. This is a heist film. It is thrilling. It is hilarious. The score is amazing. It has a Tarantino-esque mystery in writing that makes you go in and out. Every single piece of the ensemble is amazing. Everything, just subjectively, when you look at it, except for comedy, Ocean's 11 does better and is better than Friday, which is his funniest movie, while Ocean's 11 is his best.
All right, and that is going to be time on a great first round, guys. I'm going to go ahead and sit you both in the back and introduce our judges to the screen. And there's not really a lot of fact checking or anything to be done. These guys had a pretty clean round all around. So I'm just going to go ahead and go straight to Richie. Who gets your vote, sir? And as concise as you can get it for me, what was the main selling point?
I'll just tell you how I was going to write down. That's right. I ultimately, I think I'm going to go with Amaru. I think he did a great job at but taking down Friday and why and explaining like why Bernie Mac's performance is so important to the movie and why it's a better movie overall. So ultimately went with Amaru.
Okay. And Zach, I'll go down to you then. Who gets your vote and what was your main selling point?
To me, it was back and forth a lot of the time, but ultimately I have to go with Amaru, basically because he said like every character is essential in that movie and that it does kind of stand out in terms of heist movies, and then how it's more than one genre included in this one movie. So for that, I went with Amaru.
Okay. All right, guys. Thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit you all in the back and bring the competitors back in as we will go ahead and move on to question number 2, which was directly inspired for any of you who watch by my most recent title match, where I had to argue against Mr. of course, Sanchez as to why Disney Plus was a better streaming service than HBO Max. And given recent news about how HBO Max may be defuncted into what I can only describe as reality show, the streaming service, I think I won this battle long term. But if we're being realistic, there are a lot of great films on Disney Plus, so I'm going to ape my own question and expand on it. The question is, what is the best film released to Disney Plus? So we'll go ahead and get into it. With that said, Amaru, you are up first this time around, so I'll bring the timer in for you, and when you're ready, the timer will start for 1 minute.
The answer to this question is Turning Red. And it's easily Turning Red. Turning Red is so good and the best movie because it does what Pixar does best. Pixar is entertaining. It's hilarious. It makes you cry. It has characters that you love. But what it really does so well, it takes really particular stories for individual groups of people and makes those stories universal. Turning Red is a film about periods, both literally having a storyline about periods, but her turning into a panda is an allegory for that. But not only that, it really is summed up by the lesson that Mei Ling's dad tells her at the end. It takes so many different storylines, so many different plots, and weaves them in this great story to boil it down to growing up is and changing is hard, and growing into yourself is hard, and it has messy parts. And it's not about figuring out how to fix the messy parts. It's figuring out how to make room for those messy parts. And Turning Red does everything it needs to do in order to show that message.
And time. All right, Alec, back over to you for your opening minute.
I'm gonna go with a movie that that really has caught me recently, and I've gained such a bigger respect for seeing it. And the reason why is because it kind of went away a little bit from the Pixar thing, just a little bit. It still got us in our feels, but it didn't make us cry. And a part of me really thought that was a plus for it, and that was Luca. Sorry for the little accent. It's Luca. I don't have an Italian accent to say it, but this film is something that I think that a lot of people were hoping for, had not really seen from Disney/Pixar, and that was kind of an allegory for homosexuality. You know, you got to see two friends kind of like fall in love in a platonic way on the screen, but it ended up. I think it had a lot more undertones than that, and I'll get into more of what I'm talking about whenever I get to my next part.
And time. And Alec, don't worry about not having a proper Italian accent. Neither did any of the kids in that film.
I know.
Amaru, I should say that. Don't use that against him. That's just me not helping myself being snarky. They did what they did. Okay. Neither did the parents. Jim Gaffigan is the furthest you can get from being a fucking Italian. Let's just be real. All right, Amaru, back over to you, sir. Time starts and you begin speaking.
So as I mentioned, Turning Red is a story that is very particular for teenage girls growing into their own. And for one, a movie like that about something that every single girl in the world, for the most part, has to deal with, hasn't been told. But even in being able to see that on screen is amazing, especially for a Asian girl in Canada. But even more than that, the fact that this starts as an immigrant story. I was watching this with my wife, who's from Ethiopia, and there were so many times where she was looking at the screen like, I had to do that. I had to do that. I had to be the one who is trying to do everything to please my parents, but also growing up in America, trying to reconcile these things that kind of go against my culture. How do I be myself with that without disappointing them? But even before that, at the same time, Maylin, before she does the transformations, is such a confident character. She's so joyful and goofy and so good, confident in herself, and it shows the how you can believe in yourself no matter what parts you're in, and that shows with her friends. She is Chinese. One friend is a white hippie. One friend is a ADHD Korean, and one friend is an emo South Asian girl, and all of them accept themselves before the transformation, and then they even go together and accept even more after the transformation, saying that in order to help yourself grow with these messy things, friends are there to love you, to protect you, to support you, and even forgive you. It even goes further than this to add on to her mom's story, played by Sandra Oh, where when you're younger and you're going through those same conflictions and you don't reconcile that kind of trauma can pass on to your daughters, and people make mistakes that way, and being able to talk and confide in each other and do all those things will help you learn and grow, on top of the fact that all of these lessons are just put together in such a joyful, wonderful movie that you love watching. And the fact that they bring in boy bands, that this generation with BTS and One Direction and us, Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and Boyz II Men we love, is so fun.
All right. Alec, back over to you. 2 minutes on the clock, sir.
With Luca, we get a genre that I think we always come back to and we always love, because it's always so why am I blanking on my words? We all relate to that. Sorry, so relatable, and that's the coming of age genre, and that's what Luca is. Luca is a coming of age story of a young sea monster who has been told, never go to the surface. They don't like sea monsters up there. He finds his way to the surface accidentally, meets a young boy named excuse me. Why am I blanking on his name? I am blanking on his name. But Luca's friend. I can't believe that's the worst thing I could possibly do. But and this young boy, he teaches Luca to come out of his shell and to not be so, and to not be so like withdrawn, not to be scared, to be himself. He's able to find himself. I don't think he realizes who he is in the beginning of this film, and by the end of it, he ends up finding himself through this friendship with his friend, and then meeting the young girl. I'm so sorry about blinking on these damn names, but Alberto, Alberto, and just seeing their friendship. It's so pure. It's so fun to watch. It takes you back to when you were a kid and you were out just playing around, doing crazy things that you weren't supposed to be doing, and that's what you go back to when you're watching Luca. Turning Red is a great movie about being yourself, but that's what Pixar does great, right? That's all about being yourself and accepting who you are and not being afraid of who you are. What I love about this is it's a love story. It has little undertones of a love story that isn't your typical love story, which is just between these two friends, between Alberto and Luca. And to me, like, I really enjoyed that about this film. It doesn't try to rip your guts out like it does with Coco or with Inside Out, but it's able to make you emotional in a way where you're just kind of like going back and reminiscing of how you were when you were a kid, and what it felt like back in those simpler days. I'll see the rest of my time.
All right, we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open discussion portion. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
Luca is not bad by any means, but by Pixar standards and by movie standards, it's forgettable and kind of mediocre. And you said it yourself; you had to come to love it even more after multiple watches, because when you watch it, the important story that it's supposed to put forward of like accepting yourself, homosexuality, it takes a back seat. It takes a back seat to the surface level stuff of trying to find the Vespa, and even more so, the movie doesn't get interesting until the girl comes in. So, like, you're like, okay, this is cool. And then she comes in, it gets more interesting. And then you fall in love more with the cat and the race. And you kind of forget everything else that is going into it. It's coming of age. But again, the coming of age is surface level because it really, everything hones in on the plot of this movie and the things they're trying to get. Because like Silencio Bruno and going all that, those are the things you remember, not the story. With Turning Red, the coming of age story is so well done because it also shows that you're still coming of age as an adult. That's why everything in this movie works so seamlessly, because they paid attention to the details in every single aspect. The immigrant story, the generational trauma you can carry, the being individuals and loving your friends. They were so detailed. There's a Twitter thread about how well they were able to just show how accessible that Toronto is. I have a friend from Toronto who said that's just Toronto, and they paid attention to making sure the signs were there, the ramps were there. It seems like a small thing, but the attention to detail to all of those things, which makes it so well. And what's more important though, it's all wrapped up in a joyful movie. You don't have the big cry moments, but you have those tears, but you don't want it to end because you're like, I want to keep going with all of these characters because they're so damn fun.
I'll disagree that it's not full on tears, because I was definitely full on tears at the end of that movie. With Luca, I didn't need those tears. I didn't need to have that gut punch that you get from most Pixar movies that we've grown to love, that we've grown to know and love. I think Luca stands out because it's not that. It's a simple friendship story about, and I think it's so healthy for young men like my son, a 4-year-old, to see. That's what a relationship with a friend and with another young man can be, because I think a lot of times we are kind of like being told, especially us growing up as kids, like, you know, be tough. That's not what boys do. But to see such a pure relationship like Luca and Alberto, and to be able to show my son, that was amazing. You have so many great moments. Yes, the movie gets even better when Julia comes in. It doesn't make the movie. That's not the part that got me into it. I was in from the Vespa when they're riding down their Vespa, man. Like seeing that fun, that joy that you probably haven't felt in a long time. That really felt that was something that really stood out to me, especially like seeing it over and over again. Seeing something over and over again and gaining respect for it does not necessarily mean it's not a good movie. It just means that maybe I wasn't paying attention because I have a 4-year-old and he doesn't really pay attention, so I'm kind of going off of him. But that was just me. But as I got to see it and watch it by myself, that's something that I related to. With Turning Red is a great movie by every sense of the word. But it is something that I think that when I'm looking back on it, It's mostly, it's about the emotional trauma. Once it gets to that generational trauma, I think that's where the movie really starts to get into the meat of the story. Whereas Luca, I think it had me entertained from start to finish, had me laughing a lot of the time. Even though Jim Gaffigan was probably horribly cast, he still had me laughing in the movie. And I just think it's one of those ones that we're gonna definitely appreciate more and more as the years go on.
The entire movie of Turning Red turns and it's based on her transformation. And that generational trauma doesn't come into the last 20 minutes with her mom. It's all focused on the transformation of her turning into the panda and then her friends rallying around her to say, oh, we're accepting you and let's hustle this money to go to this concert that we love because we want to be your friend and help you out.
And time. All right, we have 1 minute left on the round for each competitor. Amaru, you're up first when ready.
Pixar basically doesn't miss, except for maybe 1 or 2 movies. And Luca does have a great story to it. But again, the really important aspect of platonic friendship takes a back seat because the most interesting part is when Julia comes in and a lot of the impactful stuff is really hard to find, where in terms of Turning Red, there is so much to it that is so joyful throughout, that makes you think and makes you just connect. Makes you connect to stories that aren't your own, but you can see yourself in the stories because it has the immigrant story, it has the friendship story, it has girls seeing themselves going through something that is a taboo subject. They're like, I want to talk about it. This movie talks about it and shows, again, it's not something ugly. It's not something that you need to hide from. It's something that you need to, again, as you're coming to your own, finding out who you actually are. The messy parts are a part of that and growing into that, on top of the fact that the score is so amazing and fun. The boy band aspect of it is so amazing and fun. That Malin is goofy from beginning to end. And the trauma is hidden by sci-fi. Makes it more fun.
All right, Alec, back over to you. Final minute on the clock when ready.
Luca stands out because it does something that Pixar has done has always done, and makes it actually kind of switches on its head because it doesn't have that punch that we all expect from a Pixar movie. It's such a lighthearted movie that you can just go in, you can enjoy over and over again. You have even though they are horribly miscast because they're not Italian, you know what it is, but you have great performances from Jacob Tremblay and Jack Dylan Grazer. Emma Berman puts on a great performance with Julia. And to me, that movie, it's much more relatable because of the aspect of it's just about friendship. I love Turning Red, and I love that aspect of, it's about a girl's period and teaching about that. But what Luca does is it hits everything that Turning Red does, but on a much more universal scale, because it is completely about the friendship and about accepting who you are and being around people who accept you for who you are. And that's why Luca stands out to me.
All right, and that is time. Once again, guys, Sarah, another great round, really both bringing their passion for their films. I'm going to go ahead and put you guys in the back as I will bring the judges in for the deliberation. And once again, these guys had a really great round. The thing that was really there to fact check was the character names, and even then by the end of the round, they were all brought up. However, again, this is something I made a joke about it, so don't hold it against him too much about the casting of the film. But seriously, looking into this, I'm pretty sure the only cast member of the leading cast who was actually Italian was the bully, which I don't know what that says about Pixar and Italians, but it's incredibly hilarious that is the truth. But again, don't hold that against Alec. That's not his fault. That's Pixar's casting fault. Can we blame John Lasseter for that? Can we just throw that in with everything he's done? And Luck, I watched Luck. If anyone has seen that movie sucked. Anyways, Zach, I'm going to go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
To me, I'm going to go with Alec on this one. I liked how he said, there are other movies that have kind of had the believing in yourself, like Turning Red, as well as that Luca didn't have that gut punch that other Disney movies have had. And then he really brought it home with saying that Luca has some of that same message that Turning Red does, but more on a universal scale. So for me, I went with Alec.
Okay. And Malcolm, I'll go down to you next. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
I actually went with Amaru on this because I think Amaru managed to hammer down home the point about like turning red being a really taking a taboo subject and turning it into something that makes for an entertaining movie. And I think and I just don't think Alec managed to counter that good. He did a good job attempting to counter it, but yeah.
Okay. And that means, Richie, I'll go to you next. Who gets your vote, and what was the selling point?
Ultimately, I think I'm going to go with Alec here. I think he did a great job at explaining why Luca is a different unique film, and dealing with like universal themes, and how it stands up out amongst the rest of of Pixar. And I think he really sold the film and its importance. So yeah, no, Alec.
All right. Judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and set you in the back as I bring back in the competitors for us to go ahead and move on to question number 3. And since you seem to indicate it, seriously, Luck was not a good movie. What the hell happened there? Although I do agree with you. Simon Pegg was the only entertaining thing about that film. I actually, for a second, believed he was Scottish and was thrown really off guard when the accent switched again. That was weird. But go ahead and get into it. We're going to talk about better films than Luck and movies that probably scared me less, which is ironic because we're talking about horror films, guys. And there's no pussyfooting around the question because, it's one of the biggest questions of all time for horror, and it is a replay question from the Battleground. The question is, what is the best horror film of all time? Now, this is a question for those of you who watch matches and pay attention that we have actually used twice before, because what is the best horror film of all time is such a broad range question that really you can ask it multiple times, because I feel like there's an argument for more than one film. But for the people at home who don't know, it was previously used in 2 matches, Joe Furley versus Chad Webb, and actually recently in this tournament between Will Cohen and Kevin Poss. As such, the 4 answers that were given in those 2 matches of The Thing, Halloween, James Mangold's Identity, and A Quiet Place were all deemed ineligible. So these guys could pick literally any horror film in existence except for those 4. And Jaws for the Revenge. I just feel like for the sake of the question, let's not disrespect it. But with that said, we're going to go ahead and hop into this round. Alec, you are up first, sir, so I'll bring the timer back on for you, and it will start ticking when you begin speaking.
I might have went with a much more different choice than anybody else would have chosen, but I went with a film that really has stuck with me since the day I saw it, and it's a recent film, and that's Hereditary from Ari Aster. That film is haunting. It gives me exactly what I need. It gives me what I want from a horror movie, which is to walk away not feeling completely the same when I first watched it. To me, that's a sign of a fantastic horror movie, and that's exactly what Hereditary does. You get a fantastic performance from Toni Collette, a Oscar-nominated, at least a deserved one for that performance, and even a really good performance put on by Alex Wolff in this movie. It completely subverts your expectations because of what happens midway through the film, which we'll talk about later, which is probably the part that everyone probably remembers this film for. But it doesn't stop at that moment. It continues to put you on edge and have you not feeling quite comfortable for the entirety of the movie. And that's why I went with Hereditary.
And time. All right, Amaru, over to you.
I'm going to start this off by saying an exaggerated version of something that I feel is true, but it's exaggerated. Horror is trash. Horror is an overrated genre. It has good aspects to it, like getting good tone, pacing. It's thrilling, but all of those aspects that usually are work are always to the detriment of what makes movies great, and that's the story. And a lot of horror falls into what I like to call white people shit. Where it just doesn't make sense. Not that logically, from one thing to the next, something doesn't make sense. I mean, you're looking at it and you're saying, why the fuck are you doing any of this? Why would you do that? It makes no sense. All of this was avoidable. So for the best horror movie of all time, I took a movie that literally took white people shit and made it make sense and made me understand it, not on a moral point of view, but made me realize, oh, I understand why you're doing this. So now I get to root against these antagonists even more. So the greatest horror movie of all time is Get Out.
All right, and that's going to be time on Amaru's round one. And for what it's worth for the people at home, only because both of these movies are films that came out within the last 5 years, they do both have crazy shit that happens within them, and we're going to spoil it. So God forbid you're some horror A24 art snob that hasn't seen either of these two films. Beware, spoilers ahead. With that said, Alec, back over to you, 2 minutes on the clock.
I resent the horror is trash comment because it is not trash. But you were completely right about it mostly being about white people shit. And I say this as a white person. I live my life based off of, would I do this if I was in a horror movie? And if the answer is yes, then I don't normally do that thing because that is not what I strive to be. And luckily, I have a girlfriend who is always willing to call me out on those things. So I completely agree with you. It is white people shit. And this white people shit had me enthralled from the very beginning. It had me on edge, which is what I want from a horror movie because horror is not trash. I might repeat that a few times in this argument. Horror is not trash. It has you. It's for those adrenaline junkies, right? It's for the people that want to not feel completely comfortable. I know it's a PG. It's a PG show. I don't like to always. I like to feel kind of paranoid sometimes. I like to be on edge. I like to be on the edge of my seat sometimes, and that is always fun to me. So that's why this movie. That's what this movie does. Get Out is a great choice, but it's like you said. It is a movie that's kind of trying to subvert the horror aspects. It does it really well, but I think that Hereditary is one of those movies that takes the formula of a horror movie and has you thinking, I'm going into a haunted house movie, and it completely throws you for a loop with what happens in it. And when I said earlier about how you're completely on edge from the minute this movie starts, there are awkward exchanges, there are awkward stares from people that you don't know in the film that has you on edge from the very beginning. And it does not let up, but it also has great performances. That Toni Collette performance in the very beginning is amazing. That Alex Wolff, him walking into the house after he just decapitated his sister. Yes, folks, that happens in this film. His performance in there has every time someone talks about that performance, I'm just like, y'all don't realize the nuance of what he just did there. And there's so many more great things that we'll get into right after Amaru.
And time. Also, for what it's worth for the competitors, this is far from a fucking PG show. In fact, when I upload these videos, I check it so that kids can't view it. If your child is watching this, they're on your parents' computer. Amaru, back over to you. You have 2 minutes on the clock.
You said you like to get paranoid watching movies. You said Hereditary is haunting from jump. Get Out is haunting because it puts you into the scene where Lakeith Stanfield is walking away from the car, stalking him, and that gets you on the edge of your seat, just like Hereditary from the beginning. But what Get Out does that Hereditary doesn't, it allows you the time to actually get to know the characters. First off, you talked about the Oscar snub. Daniel Kaluuya actually got the Oscar and is backed up by a great comedic performance from Lil Rel Howery and Catherine Keener and I always forget man's name from West Wing, but them two together bringing the mystery with Allison Williams as well, all did amazing. But again, what they do is after they set up that paranoid haunting scene to get you into it, to say, okay, what's this going to be about? They start to get you to know Chris and know his girlfriend, and then bring in the comedy of Lil Rel to make you more endeared to them and care what happens. So when Lakeith Stanfield comes back, all that mystery starts to come together. It's like, okay, they're bringing things together, and you're now trying to figure out, okay, what is this mystery? Why am I on the edge of the seat? Why is the crying happen when she goes, no, which is much better crying than what Alex Wolff is doing, because Alex Wolff does nothing but cry in Hereditary, and it's pretty bad, and I don't think he's very good. He has another scene that has me go, why is this happening? But I'll get on to that later. So as I said, they bring the mystery together, and when they actually show you, oh, this is what these people are doing, again, it's all jokes aside, it's a white people shit that makes sense, because for them, literally, for the antagonists, literally, they are trying to live longer through the access of Black people's bodies. So not only is it a literal thing that you understand what they're doing to root against them more, but it's also a parallel of this country in general, while the majority is always trying to take the other and only utilize them for what they can do, not for their minds. Take Black bodies, but don't use Black minds. And then from there, it goes, so because you're rooting for them so long, it ends in the most satisfying ending of all time when that TS motherfucking A door swings open and you're like, hell yes, and you're fist pumping in the theater. It makes you think, it makes you paranoid, and it makes you cheer for joy. Get Out is amazing.
All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
What Hereditary does is it brought horror fans really together for the and you know, if you don't know horror fans are the most fickle of people. You can't get them to agree about anything. But I think Hereditary is one of those movies that brought the horror fans with the art house fans, the art house people, because what this film does is it takes what you expect from horror movies. It has you uncomfortable in the beginning. It has it has an okay opening, and you're kind of getting okay, I know this formula, I get this formula, and then the decapitation of the person who you thought was going to be the main character in this movie, which is excuse me, Millie, I believe it's Millie Shapiro. Yes, Millie Shapiro as Charlie. As soon as she dies, this movie becomes a demonic possession movie, but you're not really sure where it's going. It becomes a cult movie. It becomes so much more. And then when you go back to rewatch it, because not because you need to, but because of how good this film is, when you go back to watch it, you start finding little things. You start finding little things that shown. This was all mapped out. This was put in your face in the beginning, and you had no idea because you didn't know what you were watching. That to me is a sign of a great movie. Get Out. It has the comedy beats. It's Jordan Peele. It was his directorial debut. But when you leave that movie, you think about it and you're like, that was a great horror movie. Yeah, that was a great horror movie. I might not watch it again. I don't know if I'll watch it again. With Hereditary, I think for the true horror fans, you're gonna go back and rewatch that movie because you like that, you liked what it does, you like the mood that it put, you like the score is fantastic, and the directed by Ari Aster. I don't know anyone that directs grief like he does.
So here's a problem with Hereditary. But first off, how do you not go back to Get Out when you're realizing, oh, why is the guy running the laps? Why is she shedding her tear? Why is she separating the milk from all those little notes? You go in there. What Get Out does that Hereditary doesn't, it brings together horror fans and non-horror fans alike because it does what horror does great. It makes you think. It makes you scared. It makes you on the edge of your seat. But it also adds that comedy. The comedy is another reason why you want to go back and watch it. But the story at the end, when it sticks the landing, it makes everything make sense. Here's the big problem with Hereditary. Two things. One, it drops you at the beginning of the film in the middle of all their grief. And it makes you seem like, oh, it's like when you find the grief of a stranger. You empathize with them. You're like, oh, I'm sorry. But like 20 seconds later after you're gone, you don't care about it. And that's what the story not landing fights, especially with Toni Collette's good performance. Her performance tries to bring you in to care for them, tries to make you realize them. But because you're in the middle of it, as she's fighting you on that, all the crazy stuff that happens takes you out. So while you're trying to care for them, you're like, oh shit, that just happened. But why? And then in the end, the ending ends up ending with they just want to fuck a demon. Naked people and decapitated people bowing to a monster to allow Paimon to be in a human body, which is basically the same as almost a lot of other horror films. They don't get why. We don't know why the grandma wanted the demon. We don't know why Ann Dowd even was there and was brought in. Why are they there? We have no idea. So you go in like every time I try to connect. I can't because I'm taken out. And then by the end, you're like, this doesn't make any sense. Why should I care? Because I don't want to go back and try to figure this out because I don't care about them. I empathize, but I'm gone because it doesn't make sense. While Get Out actually makes everything stick the landing and it's so rewatchable and does everything horror movies does do well and does everything it doesn't better.
Hereditary drops you into a world, really, there's history behind these characters. There's something there with the grandma, with the people that are there at the funeral, and you don't know who they are. So after you watch the movie and you go back and you start seeing those little things and you start realizing, like, damn, that shit was right there in my mind. Get Out ends it completely.
All right. Well, Alec, you are back up first for your closing minute. So when you're ready, you can continue when ready.
Get Out's story is open and shut from the, it closes right where it needs to close. Whereas Hereditary, it leaves you wanting more, and it leaves you wanting to go back because you want to see what you missed. How did you get to this point? How did you get to the point with payment? Yes, it's demons, and the demons coming, and there's a bunch of naked people. That's horror. Horror has a bunch of naked people, and it has demons and people worshiping demons. What Hereditary did, though, is it dropped you into a world. You are dropped into their grief, but you're dropped into it to the point where you're like, it's kind of relatable. Yes, you might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but whenever you go back, whenever you watch it after you're done, you're like, dude, I know those feelings. I know what that's like to be grieving the way that was, and then it piles it on top of it with Toni Collette's fantastic performance. Get Out has great performances as well, but it like I said, everything is right there in your face. You get the moments, you get all the explanations. It doesn't make you want to go back and rewatch it as much as I think Hereditary does, and Hereditary does it wonderfully from Ari Aster. It's beautifully done.
All right, and Amaru, you have the final minute of the round when ready.
What is the grandmother's history of Paimon? Why are they trying to worship him? What made them start doing that? You don't get any of those answers. And the thing is, movies can leave things unexplained if I care about the characters. But all of the crazy stuff that happens doesn't allow you to care for the characters when you're dropped in the middle of the lives, because every time Toni Collette tries to pull you in, something crazy happens to take you out, and the ending is supposed to all bring it together for you, and it never does, because it's leaving you like, why? When Get Out actually allows you to, throughout the movie, feel the dread, then want to come back and care for the characters, care for Chris, care for his girlfriend until she twists, then care for Chris even more through Rod. And then they start to bring everything together, and you're like, oh, okay, I get it. I now have a reason to root for the antagonist. How is this going to end? And the dread of, oh my God, is this really going to end in a bad thing like Black people stories always do? No, the most satisfying ending in the world. It's scary. It's funny. It is in the cultural zeitgeist with the sunken place now. It does everything Hereditary does great, and does everything it does not do great.
And time. All right. Guys, another excellent round of debate from the two of you. I'm going to go ahead and set you both in the back as I bring in the judges for the deliberation. And I have just a couple of small fact checks here. The actor from The West Wing is Bradley Whitford, who portrays Dean Armitage, the father of the family. And then in terms of the directors, both of these films were actually these directors' respective directorial debuts. Get Out was the debut for Jordan Peele. Till this point, he had only been an actor, and he was the co-writer of the film Keanu. Very different movie from Get Out. In terms of Ari Aster, he had directed a lot of short films, including his two most biggest ones being The Strange Thing About the Johnsons and Munchausen, but Hereditary was his directorial debut. With that said, we're going to go to the judges. Malcolm, you are up first on this one, so as concise as you can get it for me. Who gets your vote, and what was the main thing that sold you?
I now want to see a parody movie titled Naked People and Demons. But that being said, ultimately my point's going to Amaru, because I think what he said about Hereditary, about being dropped into the lives and just not really getting to understand the characters a lot, I think nailed home. I think Alec defended it a few times, but I just didn't feel like it was strong enough. But ultimately it was hard debate to judge, both sides really good.
All right. So the first vote goes to Richie. Down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah. Ultimately, I think both were great, but it was really hard. But I think at the end, I think Amaru did a better job at explaining why Get Out's better than Hereditary. I wanted to hear more from Alec about maybe the flaws of Get Out and why it's above get out. So yeah, I think Amaru. I'll give Amaru the one here.
All right, judges, thank you guys so much. I'll go ahead and set you guys in the back as we will go ahead and move on to question number 4. And this is quite a shift from horror, but I'm curious to see how this goes, because I would argue that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles franchise is a franchise that only has one really beloved film. I mean, there's 6 total entries. We just got more information this week on Seth Rogen's new upcoming adaptation of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. But I would argue in the general zeitgeist of the pop culture, most people really only talk about the first one. And everything else is varying from generally considered okay to generally considered a bag of shit. I'm talking about you, the third one. So with that said, I'm going to move away from those older films with those Henson puppets and Corey Feldman voicing a turtle, and we're going to go to the newer ones with different celebrities voicing turtles. The question is, what is the best Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie of the modern era? And that being the 3 options on the table: the animated TMNT, the 2014 film, and Out of the Shadows, the sequel to that film. So with that said, Amaru, you are up first for this question, so I'll go ahead and bring in the timer, and it will start when you begin speaking.
We love the original Teenage Mutant Turtles and Secret of the Ooze because for the 90s, for the early 90s, the camp worked. The silliness worked, and they actually took their silliness serious. So while it was fun for kids and nostalgic now for adults, it actually didn't really talk down to kids. It just was a sillier movie for a sillier time, and we look back with glee. And the only movie of the new trio that actually takes that same kind of vibe and tries to bring it forward to the modern era, but not trying to be a copy of it, because the only way to successfully do it is to adapt that kind of love, is not to copy it and not try to go into that camp again, to find a movie that is kid friendly, but also connects to adults and actually doesn't talk down to the kids. And actually gives them a great story with great characters, great voice acting, and really, really solid entry, is 2007's TMNT.
All right, that will be time on the opening. TMNT is the answer, which means the suspense is killing us. Alec, we go over to you. Which of the Bay films is better, is essentially what you're pitching now.
Man, y'all really gave me a hard one here, but I'm going with 2014, man. 2014, I think, is one of those movies that's kind of slept on. It wasn't. It was expected to be hated, expected to be horrible, mostly because Michael Bay's attached to it. But I think what we get here is something that doesn't. And thank God someone took it away from Michael Bay when you heard about what was planned with the Turtles. Thank God someone took it out of his hands. But because of that, we were able to get the 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like I said, if you haven't seen this movie, or if you have seen it and you haven't seen it in a while, I think it's worth it's worth a rewatch. You have guys like you have people like Megan Fox in the movie, and you have Will Arnett being really creepy. So it does feel like the 90s. But you have guys like William Fichtner also in the movie, and I think they nailed the most important part, which was the voices and the personalities of all 4 turtles. I think all 4 turtles are voiced great, are voiced really well, even Johnny Knoxville. So we'll get into more of that.
And time. All right, I'm going to back over to you when ready for 2 minutes.
TMNT does everything right. It starts off with a great narration from Lawrence Fishburne, which shows you, okay, we got some class in here, we got some gravitas, and that follows through with the voice acting moving forward with great actors. If you look up any animated film, James Arnold Taylor and Kevin Michael Richardson are essential voice actors in damn near everything, and they voice Leonardo and one of the actual key villains of the movie in the stone statues that come to life, which goes into how great of an antagonist we have in this film with, again, Patrick Stewart bringing gravitas to the person we thought was the villain in the film, but then swerves greatly to show, no, I'm doing what I'm doing to try to bring an end to the madness. And Kevin Michael Richardson and the four statues then become the new villains, and those kind of twists that make sense and actually give kids a really good story to move into is kind of the gist of how TMNT takes what you like about kids movies, because and what you like about TMNT, and then also gives them an actual movie to follow. It connects to the kids because it plays homage to the characters. Mako is amazing as the wise old Splinter who gives the turtles advice, but also lets them be their own, and moves into Leonardo starting as the guy who's the leader who went away for a year to try to become a better leader, which is essential to what he does. When he left, it gives great character conflict between them to where Mikey is doing birthday parties, which is exactly what Mikey would be doing. Donatello is a tech person doing tech calls, which is exactly what he would be doing. And Raphael, he's the one still continuing the fine fighting as the Night Watcher, which is exactly what he would be doing. And that allows the conflict between the brothers when Leonardo comes back to not only have conflict between them, but also have conflict between the main antagonist. You add on Chris Evans and Sarah Michelle Gellar. They took this movie seriously while paying homage to what made TMNT so great for kids and nostalgic for us. And it actually allowed a movie that is well told with a great story, great performances, and not stupid.
And time. All right, Alec, back over to you. 2 minutes on the clock.
I like the direction that 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles went, because I think it was really trying to talk to a older audience. TMNT is great for a younger audience, but I think that the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it was trying to grasp with the 2014 remake. It was trying to grasp the people like me, like the people maybe a little younger than me or a little older than me. They're trying to capture them. They're trying to get them into it. And I think when you sit down and rewatch this movie, it's a lot of fun. The voice performances are great from the Turtles. And then you even have a really badass Splinter in this movie. This movie, it really is like one of those movies that when you look back and when you rewatch it, it's one of those ones you can put down and sit down and have a lot of fun with. With TMNT, it's fine. I don't remember anyone from that movie. I honestly didn't even know who was in the movie because I had only seen it the one time a while ago, and I just haven't seen it since then. It's not one that really comes back to mind, whereas Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 2014, it's one that I think that a lot of people will go back and rewatch and realize, like, man, like this, for what they're trying, for what they came from, man, they really tried to save it, and I think they did a decent job. They were able to get the sequel. Obviously, I won't talk about that because I don't think I watched it. But the first movie, man, I think it's one of those ones that you have a lot of fun with. You have the guys like Alan Richardson, who plays Raphael. My favorite, Noel Fisher, playing Michelangelo. I think he completely captured the personality of Michelangelo. Alan Richardson was able to come out and give a really good performance as Raphael. And it's just one of those things that when I sit down and I'm watching it, I feel like I'm a young kid again. I feel like I'm watching the old '90s one from whenever, I don't know how old I was when that movie came out, but it was I feel like that because it's real. It's in live action. Yes, the turtles are CG, but I think the CG is actually pretty decent, and they did a really good job of giving every single turtle a lot of personality, which I don't think we hadn't seen that in a while.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 4-minute open discussion section. The timer will start when the first competitor speaks.
Everybody remember 2014's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because it's so bad. It does not pay respect to these characters at all. I will say Alan Richardson is great as Raphael. Johnny Knoxville does pretty good as Leonardo, but it takes Donatello and Mikey and makes them caricatures. I'll come back to Donatello with another point I'm going to make, but Mikey is trying to take that camp and become modern to the day to try to make it say, hey, look, I'm cool with all the slang and the hip hop and the over the top. Every time I watch Mikey, it reminded me of the Bob's Burger scenes where he said, where that person goes, this is hip hop. And this is hip hop. That's what they do to this film. Tony Shalhoub as Splinter, the dude learned the kung fu from a book. not from Master Yoshi, from a book. Megan Fox is objectified just like she's objectified in Transformers, and that's not her fault. That's Michael Bay not knowing what to do with somebody who actually has acting skills, making her and Will Arnett, a generally funny guy, very, very creepy, as you said. William Fichtner as Eric Sachs is telegraphed as a villain, even though he's supposed to start as the good guy. And you talked about Shredder being badass. Super Shredder in Secret of the Ooze is badass because you got Kevin Nash doing it. This brings me back to both Shredder and Donatello, where they're trying to be modern, they're trying to be cool, and they just make them caricatures. Donatello is a nerd, but he's not over the top glasses with things going all over the place. Like, oh, the 3.14 square root of it. They made him the epitome of every stereotypical nerd ever. And Shredder becomes this mechanized, knife flying and magnetically coming back super machine. Shredder is a freaking samurai kung fu jujitsu master. Why are we making him that way? They tried to be cool. They tried to Michael Bay the crap out of this, and they completely failed. TMNT does not play down to children.
What I think what 2014 does is it brings it more. It does make it bigger. It makes it bigger and crazier, and it's trying to capture I guess a different audience. But I'll have a lot of fun with this film. I'm not the biggest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle fan. Maybe I'm a bad judge of that. But I think that this film, when I go back and look at it, it does exactly what I want from a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles film. With TMNT, yeah, I'll probably show my son that movie, but I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, just because it's not memorable to me. Whereas 2014, I think it was able to capture what a lot of modern people want from modern films, right? A lot of younger, maybe the teenage people wanted from that film, and they got that. Yes, it has its problems, it has its issues with Megan Fox, because Michael Bay is a pig, and I get that. But in terms of the Turtles, in terms of Splinter and Shredder, I got everything that I wanted from it. The only thing I was missing was I think Casey Jones should been put in this movie, not the next one. But hey, I can't, beggars can't be choosers. I think what this movie did is it revitalized my spirit, and maybe want to see maybe more Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles in this vein.
So the seeing what you want from those characters, you should have seen Out of the Shadows, because as not good as that one is, it actually is a little better. Treats Mikey with a little bit more respect. The vibe you tried to get with Mikey being the cool, the kid that of the group and fun loving, you actually get that in Out of the Shadows, and you get that with some of the storylines they pass in, but they don't give that to him here. They really just wanted to say, hey, Turtles, spectacle, Michael Bay. The only time in this movie where there was some good balance of everything is the elevator scene where they start beatboxing. That was fun. Everything else was caricatures. Everything else was telegraphed. Everything else was, you see this from a mile away. You're not giving me respect to my characters at all. You're treating kids like they can't understand a good storyline, and it's just bad.
And time. All right. We are going to go to the one that closings. Amaru, you are back up to continue, so time starts when you're ready.
So many people have not seen TMNT, the 2007 one, because it's animated. And a lot of people are like, oh, it's animated, it's going to be for kids. But it actually is more for adults than any of the live action films, including 2014. The characters in 2014 are made caricatures, a caricature nerd, and a this is hip hop Mikey. While in the TMNT, they actually introduced them doing what they would be doing naturally from that 90s film and giving them respect. The villains, they actually did the same thing in both movies, where you thought Eric Sachs was the good guy. Well, you didn't think of that. You knew he was going to turn, and then he turned, and you saw that from a mile away. Max Winters, Patrick Stewart's character, he looked like the bad guy the whole time, and then they flipped him and made him a good guy. It was like, oh, that was actually pretty cool. They don't have any dynamic between the brothers really, except Raph and Leo in 2014, because that's natural. They have the Raph and Leo in TMNT, but also have all the brothers coming together because Leo was gone for the beginning of the film, and bringing him back into the fold makes it good. Makes that happen. The story is better, the characters are better, the voice acting is better. Everything is better in TMNT.
And time. All right, and Alec, you got 1 minute left on the clock when ready.
And in 2014 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, what you get big dumb fun with some great moments from the Turtles, with a a big, super badass Shredder. Who, yes, it might not be the classical Shredder that we know from the past and from the comics and all that, but I think with this one you get a different look. You get a different feel of it. It feels a little bit more like a little scarier. It feels a little like these guys can't overcome this. You have a great performance from Alec and Johnny Knoxville, and I will say you might not have liked the character of Noel Fisher and Michelangelo, but I genuinely enjoyed his performance. I think he's one of the guys that stood out for me. So maybe I like characters. Maybe I like caricatures. I don't know, but I think that what I got from this movie was a big dumb fun, and I love sitting down having some big dumb fun with TMNT. You know, you're gonna sit down, you're gonna watch an animated movie about the Ninja Turtles. Okay, with 2014, you get to see how big and menacing these turtles are, and it just feels a little bit more real.
And time. All right, guys. Thank you once again for another incredible debate. I'm going to go ahead and sit both of you in the back for the time being while our judges are going to come in. So I have just a couple of quick mix of slight fact checks and fun things to bring up. So the first is that a lot of people may not realize is that there are actually two currently Turtles movies that are either recently released or in development. The one is the one that I aforementioned, which is the Seth Rogen produced film Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem, which is being produced by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. It's being directed by Jeff Rowe, who co-directed The Mitchells vs. the Machines, and being written by Brendan O'Brien, who is most known for helping write the Neighbors films and Mike and Dave Need Wedding Dates, which I actually think is sort of an underrated comedy. It's dumb fun for what it is. And all that's been said about the film so far is that it will release about a year from now on August 4th, 2023, and that Rogen wants to focus on, of the 4 words in the title, teenage. He's taking that angle with it, and that's all that's kind of been said. The other film was actually just recently released to Netflix. It's called Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the movie, and it's based on a show that I believe aired on Nickelodeon, and it features actually a decent cast, including being led by Ben Schwartz as Leonardo, continuing the trend of him playing blue animated characters. Seriously, that's a thing. Look it up. And Haley Joel Osment being cast as the voice of Casey Jones. And that movie also received good reviews. It has a 78% critic like rating on Rotten Tomatoes. So good for them for making a good movie. In TMNT, despite the fact that Mako is credited for voicing Splinter, if you do the research on it, it's actually been found that he did not do the bulk of the voice recording. So Mako was a part of the announcement for San Diego Comic-Con when they announced this film and they announced the cast, and it was this big thing. He actually died the next day. After he was announced as taking on the role.
Wow.
The announcement was July 20th. He passed away on July 21st, 2006. Now, he had already done a handful of lines for the film just to kind of test the voice out, but he hadn't been able to record the full role. Instead, actor Greg Baldwin recorded the role uncredited, doing an impersonation of Mako so that they could keep his voice in the film. For those of you who are Avatar: The Last Airbender fans, Greg Baldwin was the voice actor who took over for Mako when he passed away on that show. And so he did the voice in this as well in order for Mako to receive the credit. It is his final film role. And lastly, when we're talking about the new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, as was brought up, Johnny Knoxville is in the film. This is one of the weirdest bit of castings in Hollywood, despite the fact that all 4 turtles who were cast under contracts to portray both the turtle physically and the voice. Actor for Leonardo, Pete Plozek, was actually recast at the last minute as the voice by Johnny Knoxville in the 2014 film. From Paramount, no official reason was given, and they didn't even use Knoxville to promote the film, which is a rather interesting decision for him being in it. 2 years later, when Out of the Shadows came out, despite the fact that Knoxville had been announced as being a part of the film, his voice did not appear in the final cut. It was instead Pete Plozek's voice who was used for Leonardo. According to both Knoxville himself and actor Pete Plozek, no reason has ever been given to them as to why one was recast in the first film and why Knoxville was not asked to return for the role in the second film, which goes to show that sometimes even Hollywood studios producing big budget movies don't really know what they're doing. With that said, I'm going to go over to Richie. Based on what was said in the arguments, who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
Yeah. First of all, props to both competitors. I think you're kind of fighting an uphill battle. There's not a lot of good TMNT movies, so it's really hard. But I thought both did a really good job. Ultimately, I went with Amaru. I think the TMNT not being memorable to Alec kind of hurt him a bit because he couldn't take it down as much as Amaru could take down the 2014 movie. And I think he just brought in a lot of good points. But yeah, it was a good solid debate by both of them.
All right, Zach, down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the selling point?
To me, it was actually closer than I thought because at points, Alec was better for me, but ultimately I went with Amaru. The big thing he said is that the 2014 one was a lot of caricatures, and that that it seemed like the TMNT did a really good job at focusing more on like the story and the characters better. So that's why I went with Amaru.
All right. Well, judges, thank you guys so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit all of you in the background because your winner by a final score of 3-1, Amaru Moses, coming out with the victory. You did it, sir. You didn't just achieve victory, you escaped the blind round. Congratulations. I'm sure that feels better than the win. How are you feeling right now, man?
So very happy I didn't have to do another blind round. So glad about that. Alec put up a hell of a fight, though. There were a lot of things that he kept attacking on that I was like, crap, I need to figure out how to get back to that time-wise, and that was a good point. You did a great job, man. You did a great job. I'm very, very, very happy not to have to go into another blind round.
You can literally feel the relief in just everything about you, man. It was absolutely a great matchup. Some great points from both of you guys. A more unique question set, I think, just coincidentally than other matchups. But you guys really played it well. So let's talk about what's next for you, man. So you're going to get just a little bit of a layoff. I made a decision because you guys played all these matches in a quick succession. I'm going to give you just a little bit more of a break than you've had in the past, but you have made it to the finals. And your next opponent will be the winner of next week's match between Will Cohen and Jeremy Adams, and you guys will play each other. That will upload in September. But that will be your next matchup. So my question to you is, of the two opponents that are on the table, who do you prefer, or is it just kind of whatever comes?
It's going to be whatever comes, but I've seen both of them debate, and no shade to Will, but I've seen that Jeremy is a beast of a debater. So I don't know whether or not I want to go like, give me the quote unquote less seasoned experience debater, or give me the challenge and see if I can beat them. Because also looking at Will and having going up against, like, I had to do a monologue against him, and I know he's really, really passionate about a lot, and he does really well. So I don't know. It'll be interesting either way, because I would love to test my mettle against Jeremy, but I know Will does his work, does the work, and brings it when he debates. So it's going to be interesting.
Absolutely, man. Well, congratulations. I'll leave you with a little bit of a slight ego boost. Last time I told you, or you were told when you won, that you were definitively at that point statistically the number one player in the league. Now at 6-1, with the only person who can immediately challenge you being Chad Webb, should he defeat Henry in the next title match. You have the most wins in the league outside of the champion himself. So you are certainly a top competitor. And I look forward to seeing you in the final and seeing what you can do. Best of luck, man. And I'll see you next time. Send you to the back and bring in your opponent, man. And it's always tough to lose, but I have to say, man, especially because the last time you played what I'd consider an elite competitor, it was Jeremy. It was a knockout, and from my own perspective, it was definitely a knockout that Jeremy handled most of the match. This was a deserved and earned improvement, and I think you should walk away feeling better about yourself in the loss. But how does it feel?
Yeah, I took that Jeremy loss hard, man. Like, I really was not expecting to get destroyed the way that I did, and I'm really proud of how I came back in this tournament. I beat Ryan Permison, who I knocked out Ryan Permison, who was a really great debater. I've judged his matches before. I know how great he is, and to come in, that was like a huge confidence boost. My last match, not so great, because I didn't like how that ended. Life happens and things happen, and so that was kind of affected. But to come in here against Rue, I was coming to fight for 3 questions. That's really what I was trying to at least get to that blind round. When I lost that third question, that one kind of hit me. If I can give any advice for anybody who's debating, who's coming in, you're about to have a match scheduled, read every single question before you start answering the questions, because there might be a question where there's only 3 choices, and one of the choices is far and above the other ones. So just make sure you read all your questions before you answer them. But other than that, I mean, I have 2 losses, man. One to Jeremy, one to Rue. Like those are some decent. Like those aren't anything to hang my hat on. And this one, I think I came in and I gave a decent fight. I gave Rue a decent fight.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And so, as you said, at 3-2, this tournament has obviously done something for your confidence, but it's also done something for your record. And it's put you in a place that coming up starting this October, it's officially announced we have the airing of our kind of end of year tournament. We're bringing back something that Battleground used to do in the past. At the end of every year, the top 16 players who are eligible participate in an end of year tournament. And you have now found yourself in that position with a chance to play. So how are you feeling about that going in somewhere like a mid-level seed?
I'm feeling good about it. I think that means being mid-level seed, I'll be playing people with similar records, with similar things that have probably been happening to them. So I'm ready to come in here, put in the work, and get back to and get up to that top tier. I want to be able to hang with the Joes, the Rues, the Jeremys, and the Wills. So this was my first step really into there, and I'm gonna continue making steps towards that.
Absolutely, man. Well, again, it was a really good performance, an unfortunate loss, but a really good performance. And I look forward to the next time that you're back, man. So we'll see you then. Take care of the kid, the dog, and everything else that distracts you while you fight, but you persevere. Go ahead and put him in the back. And guys, that is the end of another great match. Again, Amaru continuing to prove that he is one of the best players in this league. He has now made it to the tournament final for a chance at earning a title shot, which is a huge deal. And again, I think this tournament has done a lot for Alec. If we're looking at all the players who didn't make it to the final, I think you could argue he may be able to take the most from this with 2 knockout wins and a performance that will leave him feeling much better against bigger opponents than the last one was. But with that, guys, that'll be the end of this match. I want to thank our 3 judges, Malcolm, Zach, and Richie, for being here, guys. Thank you so much for helping us out, as always, and to all our judges, of course. Congratulations to Amaru, and once again, thank you to Alec showing up and playing a great game. If this happens to be your first match, please be sure to rate and subscribe. Stick around because we have more Battleground matches coming up. Just in the next couple of days alone, we have 2 more matches coming out. Tomorrow, we have 2 competitors who are a little down lower in the ring, so to speak. Chris Diaz and Kevin Moreno, who are fighting to kind of push themselves up the ladder as we push towards the end of the year. But with that said, on behalf of everyone here at Movie Battleground, my name is Aaron Knoll, and we will see you guys next time. Take care.